So this is just a little practice model of the dining room that I was using when I was playing with getting the fixtures and things in. And so I had practiced putting in an exterior image on this outside the window, as well as window treatments. So in this video, that's what we're going to focus on, is working on this and making sure we have some depth outside of our windows. But how do we do that? So it's really kind of simple. I just have a picture that's actually outside the window that I've imported as a JPEG. And so that's what we're doing. And it looks kind of weird. It's all about the placement, because if you have your scene saved, this is where you actually want to have this done first. Then you can put the picture in and position it so that as like I zoom in, I can, this is looking really nice and it looks proportionate. And you want to think about also what you're seeing. Because like, for example, this dining room could be located on the front of the house. So maybe I'm looking at outside into the front yard and what would be the street and houses across the street. This one, I kind of, when I was playing with it, I was like, well, let me look for a backyard image. And so that's what I did a search for. So when I was doing that, let me get to the internet. Let's see, I did like backyard designs, and I kind of sat down and like just played with figuring out which image might look best. You might have something in mind. You might actually have images from the project. Like if you're doing a remodel, you might want to take pictures from the actual like locations to put in there, because clients love that, because it's like, whoa, it really shows what it's going to look like potentially. This could be a good image because with the positioning, but you do want to make sure it's a good quality JPEG and high resolution. But you definitely want to think about angle. Like this is looking down, this is looking down, this is kind of down. So you want to think like, if I'm standing at a window and that whole, like we're cheating foreground and background and perspective and stuff like that, and you want it to be realistic, like with the kind of geographic area of where you're at as well. So I just kind of looked around to find a backyard that seems like it would be appropriate. This one could probably work just fine, because again, I'm not trying to show the whole thing. I'm just trying to show that there's some depth back there. And you don't want this to be like the star of the show, because we're not trying to detract from our actual model. So this one could certainly work. I could save that image and put that on my desktop. This one might work. Sometimes I like to save a couple until I know like which one's going to work the best. Yeah, let's see about this one. Okay, so that should be enough. So I'm going to save those two. And then I'm going to go back to my model. So let me get the one that does not. Okay, so here is what we have. Now, the biggest thing is we've already got views saved, and there's a couple ways we can do this. I can turn off that floor plan layer. I can just bring in my image and try orienting it, and I'll show you that first. So for example, just like I did when I brought in the artwork image, I'm just going to come up here to File, Import, and get to the right thing. And I'm going to find one of those exterior images that I've saved. And so I can determine which one I want to kind of play with first. So let's maybe play with this one. And if it's not in the right direction that you're wanting, that's okay. We're going to fix that. Like this is going in the correct direction for the most part. And so I'm just going to size this. I don't know yet if this is the right size at all. But now I'm just going to take it and I'm going to kind of move around, and it sometimes can be a little like, whoo, trying to figure this out, because you don't want it to be right up on your model, because that could really mess with the scale. Like, let me get it actually there. You could do that, but then you've really got to be careful of like making sure that you can play with the scale of this and does it look appropriate. That one actually doesn't look too bad. It looks a little stretched. That's actually one way. I mean, and that could certainly do. So then as you do the view, it's not sticking out like where you're not seeing any gaps and stuff. So that could certainly be an option. You could select it again and move it down just a little bit. So now we've got some more of the fence line, since that's supposed to be in the background. So that's definitely a way of that working. And you can see as I rotate that I'm still seeing the backyard, and I'm not having to cover up like a image outside the window out that's sticking out. So that is a way you can do it. You can stick it right on the wall. Sometimes it doesn't work exactly like you want, but this image actually does work very nicely because the fence is so far in the background and positioning. So again, we could just keep playing with that a little bit if we wanted a little lower. And you can play with scale of it. Make sure you have just the image selected. And until it feels good. So that's that option. Another one, if I hide this for a second, or yeah, I'm gonna hide it. Another option that even I like did for a long time and was taught to do is this one, where you just basically build like a faux wall outside, like a faux background. Looks kind of weird out here. Doesn't matter how like wide it is, but what you do want it is wide enough so that when you rotate, it's not going to see like a gap and stuff over here. And so you might have to make it taller. And then you can do file, import, find the image. Let's do a different one. Let's try that one. And again, we can scale this and see, we can see how that looks. Obviously, we're only seeing grass, so that's not ideal because it's like, woo, grass. And you can move that up and down and scale it. Like if you, and you don't even have to have the walls. Sometimes the wall's there just to help you. Some people have problems rotating and getting it positioned how they want. So again, you can just play with this and figure out the positioning. You could always move that wall back a little bit, but the biggest thing is when you get into 2-point perspective and you start zooming in, oop, I had that one hidden. Does this look balanced and appropriate? So this one might need to move a little bit more and might need to scale down a little bit so that it feels a little more balanced. That's getting close, but that's two options that you can do right there. You can put it on a faux wall out there that's not really meant to be seen from inside the view, or you can put it actually on your model and play with the scale that way. So either or is going to work. You just want to make sure that when in either view, like for example, 1-point perspective, notice when we're in this one, that obviously doesn't look good. It looks fine when we're in 2-point perspective. So that is something that would have to be corrected. And so you could always hide and re-import and shift and stuff, but you have to really make sure you're being careful with your scenes. So the easiest way is to just put it on the wall out here and play with the scale. So Control Z and hide, there we go. That looks nice. And now we need a window treatment. So window treatments, you could certainly do Roman shades. I'm going to put a simple drapery here. And I'm going to show you one of my favorites that I like to use from 3D Warehouse. Let me get to it. Okay. So again, just like before, you can always select or put in different terminology. You put drapery. I just put in curtain and made sure it was on models. And I scroll through. There are obviously lots of different options you can choose from. Some are definitely better than others and are easier to manipulate. You want to be careful that you're getting one that's pretty easy to kind of change and modify, because they're definitely not going to be necessarily the width of your window. And so, for example, this one right here by Art for Design, I like a lot. So this is kind of one of those, I save these and you end up reusing the same curtains in a lot of your models. You just change the color by putting a texture on it. So I'm going to download this one, open it up, and I'm going to select it, Command C or Control C for copy. And I am going to clean this up a little bit just because it gets a little busy with everything going on. Turn off the floor plan. And I'm going to hide her temporarily too. And I'm going to hide this as well. Actually, I could turn off the furniture and that would work nicely. Okay, so now I'm going to Command V or Control V to copy, and I'm going to bring in those drapes. They are obviously in the wrong direction, so we need to rotate them. So I am going to just take my rotate command and bring those right there. And then now I need to rotate them again. This time I'm going to get on top because now they need to go in that direction. And now I'm just going to move the whole thing into kind of place about the height of where I want them. Whoops, sometimes takes a little finagling to get it onto the actual wall. So fun. Getting closer, getting closer. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to get them to right about the height. I don't like to have a huge gap of curtains to ceiling. And then we've got our feature here. And then you'll notice they're kind of in the wall showing. So we don't want that. So I'm going to kind of just use the move command and pull them out a little bit. I'm just using the side wall because it gives me a horizontal to pull off of. And that's better. We're not in the wall. So now, again, I'm going to just kind of keep manipulating and moving these a little bit. And yeah, perfect. No, terrible, because we got to get this one over here and we got to get the drapery length. So now I'm going to take the scale command, go ahead and scale them down because this would be more appropriate. We want the length. But before I just move this, I need to go ahead and extend this out. So what I'm going to do first is not, let me see, can I use the scale? No, let me see. So quickly, I can select this. I'm going to move it down to about the length that I want it, that finial. And then I am going to scale this one, the rod. I'm going to grab it from the center square, or the center cube there, because I'm just pulling it down. I'm not changing the dimensions of the rod, like the actual circumference. I don't want to do that. The circumference is fine. Here, let me minimize this. There we go. Using the center. And I'm going to lock it on. There we go. And now you get in inside your model. And now I'm just going to take this one and move it down and eyeball that till about where it's supposed to be. There we go. And so now we've got drapery. If you decide you want, you can take, and that's why I like this drapery panel so much, because now I can just scale it if I want it to come a little bit more in front of the window. Whoa. And you can determine that. And so then now kind of the last part is to check the color, because obviously this color is a little off. So I could determine, like, maybe materials wise, I want to kind of pick this dustier blue. So maybe I go into edit mode and I see how that kind of looks with this overall, because I pulled that blue from the painting so that it kind of complements here, because we need to kind of tone that down. That mustard was too much. So now I'm going to go back, turn my furniture, not the floor plan, turn the furniture back on, edit, unhide all that I've hidden. And there we go. Now we've got curtains and we've started to get our people in the background, the foreground. Sometimes you can even find sitting people, and you can decide if your model needs anything further. So the biggest thing is once you have your perspective and everything, you just want to make sure that all lines are hidden and things like, so for example, the floor plan is hidden, and you want to update your scene and adjust your camera views and stuff like that. And so I could get in here and play, but there's all kinds of finessing with that. But now we've added details. We've really started to enhance this and make it really start to look like a real model that we could start to prepare to present to a client. So that's it.